My name is 𝐕𝐢𝐺𝐝, and welcome to my channel, to my little world. It's actually quite big, actually. Let me rephrase that. Welcome to my mind, because I know my internet has been sporadic since the other day. So welcome to my page, my channel. My name is 𝐕𝐢𝐺𝐝, and you are here with me in my living room on my fluffy pink sheepskin. Hello. Hi, James. I'm playing with the new microphone. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me clearly. So far, I really like this. It seems to be able to cancel out a lot of the background noise, like today's trash day in my neighborhood, and they've already picked up all the trash. So I was waiting to make sure that the trash wouldn't be making noise in the background. And I wanted to share the theme that dropped in for today, because it makes a lot of sense for every person on the planet. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. It's a rather simple and yet profound book to look through. So I like to sometimes do what we call a hook 'em, where you just randomly pick a page. And so I ended up on the chapter 9, Removing Your Inner Thorn. So I'm going to read to you, and then we're going to discuss this. And I'll share with you what came up for me. Because even in my own life, even the subtleties and the nuances that I'm going through, I acknowledge and recognize in the bigger, grander scheme of the collective, the theme is interwoven. And you know what? We're all going through some version, some variation, some threading of it all. So removing your inner thorn. The spiritual journey is one of constant transformation. In order to grow, you must give up the struggle to remain the same and learn to embrace change at all times. One of the most important areas requiring change is how we solve our personal problems. We normally attempt to solve our inner disturbances by protecting ourselves. Real transformation begins when you embrace your problems as agents for growth. In order to understand how this process works, let's examine the following situation. Imagine that you have a thorn in your arm that directly touches a nerve. When the thorn is touched, it's very painful. Because it hurts so much, the thorn is a serious problem. It's difficult to sleep because you roll over on it. It's hard to get close to people because they might touch it. It makes your daily life very difficult. You can't even go for a walk in the forest because you might brush the thorn against the branches. This thorn is a constant source of disturbance. And to solve the problem, you only have two choices. The first is to look at your situation and decide that since it's so disturbing when things touch the thorn, you need to make sure nothing touches it. The second choice is to decide that since it's so disturbing when things touch the thorn, you need to take it out. And sometimes we need to take things out, you know what I mean? Believe it or not, the effects of the choice you make will determine the course of the rest of your life. This is one of the core level structural decisions that lay the foundation for your future. Let's begin with the first choice and explore how it will affect your life. If you decide you have to keep things from touching the thorn, then that becomes the work of a lifetime. If you want to go for a walk in the woods, you'll have to thin out the branches to make sure you don't brush against them. Since you often roll over and touch the thorn when you sleep, you have to find a solution for that as well. Perhaps you could design an apparatus that acts as a protective device. If you really put a lot of energy into it and your solutions seem to work, you would think that you had solved your problem. you'd say, I can sleep now. And guess what? I got to go on TV to give a testimonial. Anybody who has the thorn problem can get my protective device. And I even get paid royalties. So now that you've got a whole life built around this thorn and you're proud of it, you keep the woods thinned out and you wear the apparatus at night. But now you have a new problem. You fell in love. This is a problem because in your situations, it's hard to even hug. Nobody can touch you because you might touch the thorn. They may touch the thorn. So you design another kind of a device that allows closeness amongst people without actually touching. Eventually you decide you want total mobility without having to worry about the thorn anymore. So you make a full-time device that doesn't have to be unstrapped at night or changed over for hugging and other daily activities, but it's heavy. So you put wheels on it, control it with hydraulics, and install collision sensors. It's actually quite an impressive device. Of course, you had to change the doors in the house so that that protective apparatus could get through it. But at least now you can live your life. You can go to work, you can go to sleep, and you can get close to people. So you announce to everyone, I've solved my problem. I am free. I'm a free being. I can go anywhere I want. I can do anything I want. This thorn used to run my life. Now it doesn't run anything. Sure about that? The truth is, the thorn completely runs your entire life. It affects all your decisions, including where you go, whom you're comfortable with, and who's comfortable with you. It determines where you're allowed to work, what house you can live in, and what kind of bed you can sleep in at night. When it's all said and done, that thorn is running every aspect of your life. It turns out that the life of protecting yourself from your problem becomes a perfect reflection of the problem itself. You didn't solve anything. If you don't solve the root cause of the problem, but instead attempt to protect yourself from the problem, it ends up running your life. Sound familiar to anybody? You end up so psychologically fixed on the problem that you can't see the forest for the trees. You actually feel that because you've minimized the pain of the problem, you've solved the problem. That mind is so clever and tricky. But it is not solved. All you did was devote your life to avoiding it. It is now the center of your universe. It's all there is. In order to apply the analogy of the thorn to your whole life, we will use loneliness as an example. Let's say you have a very deep sense of inner loneliness. It's so deep that you have trouble sleeping at night. And during the day, it makes you very sensitive. You're susceptible to feeling sharp pangs in your heart that cause quite a disturbance. You have trouble staying focused on your job, and you have trouble with everyday interactions. What's more, when you're very lonely, it's often painfully difficult to get close to people. You see, loneliness is just like the thorn. It causes pain and disturbance in all aspects of your life. But in the case of the human heart, we have more than that one thorn. But we have sensitivities about loneliness, about rejection, about our physical appearance, and about the mental prowess. We are walking around with lots of thorns touching right against the nerve, most sensitive part of our hearts. At any moment, something can touch them and cause pain inside. You have the same two choices with these inner thorns as you did with a thorn in your arm. Surely it was obvious that you would have been much better off taking them out the thorn. There's no reason to spend your life protecting the thorn from getting touched when you can just remove it. Once the thorn is removed, you are truly free of it. The same is true with your inner thorns. They can be removed. But if you choose to keep them without being disturbed by them, you must modify your life to avoid the situations that would stir them up. If you're lonely, you must avoid going to places where couples tend to be. If you're afraid of rejection, you must avoid getting too close to people. If you do this, however, it is for the same reason that you thinned out the woods. You're attempting to adjust your life to make allowance for your thorns. In the earlier example, the thorns were outside. Now they are inside. When you're lonely, you find yourself pondering what to do about your loneliness. What is it that you can say or do in order to not feel so lonely? Notice that you aren't asking how to get rid of the problem. You're asking how to protect yourself from feeling it. You do this either by avoiding situations or by using people, places, and things as protective shields. You're going to end up just like the person with the thorn. The loneliness will run your entire life. You'll marry the person who makes you feel less lonely, and you'll think that's natural and normal. But it's exactly the same as the person who is avoiding the pain of the thorn instead of taking it out. You have not removed the root of loneliness. You have only attempted to protect yourself from feeling it. Should someone die or leave you, the loneliness would again disturb you. The problem will be back the moment the external situation fails to protect you from what's inside. If you do not remove the thorn, you will end up responsible for both the thorn and everything you pulled around yourself in an attempt to avoid it. Should you be fortunate enough to find someone who manages to diminish the feeling of loneliness, you will then begin worrying about keeping your relationship with this person. You've managed to compound the issue by avoiding the problem. This is exactly the same as using the apparatus to compensate for the thorn. You have to adjust your life accordingly. The minute you allow the core problem to stay, it expands out into multiple problems. There's a lot of different analogies we can use in that one. Where did I just leave off? Okay. So should you be fortunate enough to find someone who manages to diminish the feeling of loneliness, you will begin worrying about keeping your relationship with this person. And you've managed to compound the issues by avoiding the problem. And this is exactly the same as using the apparatus to compensate for the thorn. You have to adjust your life accordingly. The minute you allow the core problem to stay, it expands into multiple problems. It wouldn't dawn on you to just get rid of it. Instead, the only solution you see is to avoid feeling it. Now you have no choice but to go out and fix everything that affects it. You have to worry about how you dress and how you talk. You have to worry about what people think of you because that could affect your feeling of loneliness or need for love. If someone is attracted to you and this eases your feelings of loneliness, you wish you could say, "How do I need to act in order to please you?" It can be any way you want. I just don't want to feel these periods of loneliness anymore. You see how we compromise ourselves to create this inauthentic way of connection with others, to mask our pain and suffering, our fear of rejection, our fear of loneliness. I'll do anything, just don't reject me, don't abandon me, don't leave me. That desperation leads to desperate measures, and it draws desperate situations. So the more desperate you are for something, the more desperate you will eventually be as a result to get out of it too. So now you have this burden of worrying about the relationship. It creates an experience of underlying tension and discomfort, and it can affect your sleep at night. The truth is, however, this discomfort that you're experiencing isn't actually the feeling of loneliness. It's the never-ending thoughts of, did I say the right thing? Does she really like me? Or am I just kidding myself? The root problem is now buried under all these shallower issues that are all about avoiding the deeper one. It all gets very complicated. People end up using their relationships to hide their thorns. If you care for one another, you are expected to adjust your behavior to avoid bumping into each other's soft spots. How many of you out there have experienced that one? And then you're walking on eggshells in relationships. And then there has to be a point where you go, this doesn't feel natural. This doesn't feel good. What the heck am I doing? If I'm not happy, how can I even influence someone else to be happy? If I'm fearing the rejection and just doing what I feel is expected of me, who's really suffering? Is the other person? Because ultimately, it always comes back to self. What is your underlying reason for doing what you do? Always ask, is this coming from a place of love or from a place of fear? And even the place of fear is a form of love, the fear of not gaining that love from another when it's all within. So, this is what people do. They let the fear of their inner thorns affect their behavior. They end up limiting their lives just like someone living with an external thorn. Ultimately, if there is something disturbing inside of you, you have to make a choice. You can compensate for the disturbance by going outside in an attempt to avoid feeling it, or you can simply remove the thorn and not focus your whole life around it. Such a novel idea, isn't it? Kind of reminds me of, like every time I touch this thing, it hurts. Stop touching it. The silliness us humans do, right? Oh, so good to see you, Cheryl Ann. So, continuing on. Do not doubt your ability to remove the root cause of the disturbance inside of you. It really can go away. You can look deep within yourself to the core of your being and decide that you don't want the weakest part of your life running, the weakest part of you running your life. You want to be free of this. You want to talk to people because you find them interesting, not because you're lonely. You want to have relationships with people because you genuinely like them, not because you need for them to like you. You want to love because you truly love, not because you need to avoid your inner problems. How do you free yourself? In the deepest sense, you free yourself by finding yourself. You are not the pain you feel, nor are you the part that periodically stresses out. None of these disturbances have anything to do with you. You are the one who notices these things. Because your consciousness is separate and aware of these things, you can free yourself. You free yourself of your inner thorns. You simply stop playing with them. Think about that. Why do we entertain these thoughts that take us out of our peace? We talk about choose your battles. How about choose your peace? It's all about your languaging. It's all about where attention goes, energy flows, which comes from Michael Singer. It is the focus on what you want, not on what you don't want, because you're equally feeding wherever your attention is going. If you don't want it, then you're still feeding it and you're still holding on to it. And you're creating more of that energy, like a gratitude, like we pay for our experiences from the frequencies of our thoughts that we focus on an object, person, place, thing, experience. We literally, this is a bank. This is a bank, and the more mindful you are of your thoughts, the more present in the gift of the now, the more power you have to shift that, literally like a flipping of a switch. Oh, look at that. My mind's trying to take me on a ride. You can choose to get off at any time. How do you free yourself? In the deepest sense, you free yourself by finding yourself. You are not the pain you feel, nor are you the part that periodically stresses out. None of these disturbances have anything to do with you. You are the one who notices these things. Because your consciousness is separate and aware of these things, you can free yourself. You are the watcher, and you're being watched. You are the observer, and it's all you. To free yourself, you simply stop playing with the inner thorns. The more you touch them, the more you irritate them. Because you're always doing something to avoid feeling them, they are not given the chance to naturally work themselves out. If you want, you can simply permit the disturbances to come up, and you can let them go, like clouds coming through your mind. I always think of, is it Bob, happy trees and floating clouds. All right. So, if you want, you can simply permit the disturbances to come up, and you can let them go. Since your inner thorns are simply blocked energies from the past, they can be released. The problem is you either completely avoid situations that would cause them to release, or you push them back down in the name of protecting yourself. How many times have you told a story? I don't want to feel this, but yet you keep recreating the story and also the sensation. And see, when your mind, when you're telling a story, you're recounting it, remembering it, thinking about it, you're feeding it energy, you're keeping it alive. So it's very important that we meditate daily to, like I call this the mental flossing. We literally need to know what is going on in my conscious and my unconscious mind. The moment you get a handle on that, then you can go, oh, wow, okay, so this is on my mind today. We can shift that. We can journal about it. We can get it out. Cathartic, when you write, literally the hand to pen to paper, is the most healing way to release the mind. There's a reason why our ancestors did a lot of writing, and now we're on devices, which became our vices. Suppose you're sitting at home watching TV. You're enjoying the program until the two main characters fall in love. Suddenly, you feel loneliness, but there's no one around to give you attention. Interestingly, you were fine just a few minutes ago. This example here shows that the thorn is always in your heart. Not really. That's figuratively speaking. It's just not activated until something touches it. You feel the reaction as a hollowness or a dropping sensation in your heart. It feels very uncomfortable. A sense of weakness comes over you, and you begin thinking about other times when you were left alone, and of people who have hurt you. Stored energy from the past releases from the heart and generates thoughts. Now, instead of enjoying TV, you're sitting alone, caught in a wave of thoughts and emotions. How often has that happened? Isn't it interesting watching TV, television, watching movies, scripts playing out, influencing you because you're taking in through your five senses, through your eyes, your ears, and it actually triggers memories in you. So a song could bring up memories of a good time or a bad time or melancholy, like, oh. Always remember, we don't just feed off of food. We feed off of our environment. Everything you take in through your five senses is the data, and you store it in your physical body. Your cells have memory. Remember, they say water frequency. Water stores memory too. We are 70 to 80% water. All right. What can you do to solve this besides eating something, calling somebody, or doing something else that might quiet it down? We call those distractions. When you're in a mood, you reach for food. It's addictive coping mechanisms. We don't really ever stop to think about that our most addictive behaviors are the results of our addicted and addictive belief systems, right? So your BS, all the BS up in here, is your biggest addiction. And then from there, all the other addictions adjust and adapt. So it's, we can joke around and say, it's like pile of poo just rolling downhill. It just continues to get bigger and bigger and messier and messier. Remember, everything travels down, the trickle-down effect. If you're right in the mind, you're not going to end up in dis-ease and discomfort. When you're not right in the mind, it affects everything else. Everything is driven from here, conscious and unconscious. So this is why it's so vitally important to become mindful, to become present, to use the power of the breath. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? What thought just passed through my mind that I felt this or that? Like really being present and asking yourself the questions. Don't react to the external. Respond to internals, because this is your inner guidance system. Body's always telling on the mind. It's a tattletale. It'll always tell you the truth. That's why kinesiology really, truly works. Is because the body's just responding in a true or false mode of tension, relaxation. Sympathetic versus parasympathetic. See how that works? Your circuitry, your wiring, just like a computer, an on and off switch. Electric circuitry, when the signal goes out, your body's just passing it in the direction. Oop, sympathetic. I don't believe in that. That's stress. That's an untruth. Oh, parasympathetic. I feel so much better. I resonate with that. I align with that. Your skeletal structure is, again, the belief system. How flexible are you? The body will always tell you how rigid the mind is or how malleable, fluid, and open it is. Because your body will reflect that too. Now, what you can do is notice that you noticed. That's huge. You are the witness of everything that's going on around you, especially within you. Nobody can say, did you notice that thought? Except for you. Be the observer. Be present. You can notice that your consciousness was watching TV, and now it is watching your inner melodrama. The one who sees this is you, the subject. What you are looking at is an object, intangible, of course. A feeling of emptiness is an object. It is something you feel, but who feels it? Your way out is to just notice who's noticing. It's really that simple. It is much less complex than the protective apparatus with all its ball bearings, wheels, and hydraulics. All you have to do is notice who it is that feels the loneliness. The one who notices is already free. Notice how that worked? Your awareness and attention, focus on that object, gives it energy. And all tension is the stuck sensations saying, hey, I'm vying for your attention. Where there's tension needs your attention. And once you start to go, oh, I'm so sorry, let me breathe into you. What is it you need? What is the message in this tension? What have I been avoiding? And then you start to notice it softens, it relaxes, it releases. It's like, finally you gave me a little attention. All you have to do is notice who it is that feels the loneliness, because the one who notices is already free. If you want to be free of these energies, You must allow them to pass through you instead of hiding them inside of you. More often than not, and I'm a testimony of this. This is why I do what I do. That the more you latch onto the thought that you don't want to feel and think about, you're the one who's not allowing it to pass through. It's just going through, but it's the human mind goes, I got to hold on to that, and I got to argue with it, and I got to create a story around it. It's just a thought, but is it even your thought? Most people don't ever question whether it's theirs to hold on to. That in itself should be freeing. Wow, that's not really my thought. Why did I think I needed to hold on to that or create a story around it? The moment you let go, you've allowed your freedom. That's a gift you give yourself. Ever since you were a child, you've had energies going on inside. Wake up and realize that you are in there and you have a sensitive person in there with you. Simply watch that sensitive part of you feel disturbance. Feel that. I say feel it to heal it for a reason. See it, feel jealousy, need, and fear. These feelings are just a part of the nature of a human being. If you pay attention, get that? Again, you're the currency. Thoughts are your payment. That's your currency that you're feeding it with your attention. You will see that they are not you. They are just something you're feeling and experiencing. You are the indwelling being that is aware of all of this. If you maintain your center, you can learn to appreciate and respect even the difficult experiences. That's huge. Huge. If we do not face the thoughts, how can we recognize such thoughts? Is that what I'm reading, James? Well, that's a good question. How else would you? When you don't face the thoughts, is it because you don't want to? See, this is one thing I've noticed. When people say to me, I can't meditate because my mind's too busy. Well, that's the whole purpose of meditating. But the other secondary reason behind people being unable to sit and be with themselves is because a lot of times, and I know what this is like, it took me years to really go, oh, I need to sit and meditate. Because if you're a runner, and I figuratively and physically was in my life, runners don't stay still. So they're constantly on the go, and you can never hold your attention to the moment if you're always going forward, right? So if you're unable to sit with yourself, the question is, why? Why are you so afraid to be alone with you? And we'll always go back to the root cause, the running, the fear of abandonment, the loneliness, the feeling of unlovable, being unlovable, the unworthiness, the unlovableness. We're all worthy of love. And I'd say that that is probably the hardest one right there, is most people are afraid of themselves and being alone just by themselves. Like, that's the true into me I see. The real intimacy we all seek outside of ourselves. Oh, I want a twin soul, a twin flame. I have to find my soulmate. I have to be in the perfect relationship. If you don't get right with you, there ain't nothing saying that you're going to find the right person, because they're going to mirror back to you your work to do. We attract where we're at. And if we're desperate for another because we're not tapping within in ourselves, we're going to attract some people who take some serious advantage of us. Anybody? I know I have. And when you recognize it was the fear that drove you there, then you can re-engage the love to get you out. So when we come back to our own heart, like, this heart is tender, is sacred. And the more we honor what it is we feel, the more it will reveal. And that in itself is the step to heal. being present in the feelings, in the muck, in the junk. I mean, seriously, I sit in my shit all the time. And sometimes I'm not too happy with that. But it is the most healing and revealing that I have had to do. And especially in the case of the thorns, right? How many times have we continued to place ourselves in unhealthy relationships with others because we, out of loyalty, thought that was the right thing because that's how we were raised. But we never stopped to ask, is this still serving? Who is it serving? Is it one-sided or is it receptive? And I don't mean just a physical relationship, your lover, or just family. I'm talking about your work relationships. I'm talking about the friends you hang out with, the spaces you congregate in, the communities you may subscribe to. Sometimes we outgrow those too. And I know throughout the course of my life, I've had to pack up and move on from several different lives. You know, I was even sitting in my meditation earlier today going, oh my gosh. Being a yogi, I know people just assume that they think they know who I am or what I'm all about because I'm just a yoga teacher. So I must be all naive and I must be gullible and shouldn't expect money in return and all this other drama bullshit, BS, that people create for their little boxes. But those things make you lazy. This is one of the reasons I dislike labels. Because everybody's label has a different filter, has a different list of what they expect and attached to that. And it makes them lazy because once they put you in a box, they don't feel like they need to get to know you. They've just assumed they do. And that's even with your family, with the people who've known you the longest. And in most cases with family, those are the people that are still expecting you to be the person that you were. Unless you have a healthy family environment where everybody recognizes how much we've grown and evolved and changed. And same with friends and, you know, the places you congregate. Do you still feel safe in those same places? You know, what happened? I saw rest in peace Nigel. Oh my goodness, did something happen that I didn't know? I saw something about Devil's Playground earlier. Oh, you had to get my attention. Oof. Anyway. All right. So continuing on with this, because this is where we are in the world right now. And this is what the eclipses have been bringing up the most. Go where you're honored and treated best. Why would you do anything less? Why would anybody, oh my gosh. Wow. That's a big surprise for today. Okay. So Nigel from Devil's Playground passed today. Whoo, sending so much love to his family and those around touched by that, especially. We just never know. Life is precious. Go where you're treated best. Life is too short, perfect example, to continue to allow yourself to be mistreated. And it starts with how you treat yourself, because if you're placing yourself in those toxic environments, you're essentially telling those individuals it's okay to treat you that way because you placed yourself in their space. Whereas if you create your life from a place of into me I see, the most intimate relationship you have with yourself is to recognize what it is you need, to honor that, to not place yourself in toxic situations, to not go places where people aren't receptive and reciprocating the same that you give, and filling up your cup, because life should be about receptivity and give and take, right? So keeping that in mind, these are the times we are in, that there's no time to waste dwelling on the pain, but focusing and expanding the pleasure and it's not going to be all pleasure. I'm just going to point that out. This is a life, you know, this is like the game of life. Assuming you can only hold on to the good is denying the fact that the bad gave you the contrast to recognize what was good. So when you get to that point, you start to see it all as like this cosmic game, and you get to choose how you respond to it. That's the true way to win, is not to react, but to take a deep breath and go, oh, I see you. Oh, I see you. Oh, that was clever. That was good. You got me. Ah, boy. Now on to the next thing. You know, we don't linger. We move on. We keep moving. But we don't move away. We don't deny or reject or avoid. What we do is we stay there and go, oh, what's the lesson? Let's celebrate that. Let's integrate that. Because there's a lesson in every experience. And continuing. So you are the indwelling being that is aware of all of this. If you maintain your center, you can learn to appreciate and respect even the difficult experiences. Just like I said, they're contributing. You can't have one without the other. And that's when you know you're whole, is when you own it all. Because we're all fragmented because we want to deny what didn't feel good. And the reality is that contributed all the good. You can't have one without the other. You can't have one without the other. Okay. For example, some of the most beautiful poetry and music have come from people who are in turmoil. Great art comes from the depth of one's being. You can experience these very human states without getting lost in them or resisting them. You can notice that you notice and just watch how experiencing loneliness affects you. Wow, that feels kind of cruddy. I don't really like that feeling. I'll remember that. Especially the next time, and I'll go, how can I change this? Go outside, get in nature. You'll recognize real quick you're not alone. Does your posture change? Body language, people. Your body will always tell on you. Do you breathe softer, slower, or faster? What goes on when loneliness is given the space it needs to pass through you? Be an explorer. Be curious like a child. Witness it. And then it will go. Because it was just looking for you to acknowledge that it even existed. If you don't get absorbed in it, the experience will soon pass and something else will come up. Just enjoy all of it. If you can do this, you will be free, and a world of pure energy will open up within you. The more you sit in the self, the more you will begin to free an energy that you never experienced before. It comes up from behind rather than in front, where you experience your mind and emotions. When you are no longer absorbed in your melodrama, but instead sit comfortably deep inside the seat of awareness, you will start to feel this flow of energy coming up from deep within. This flow has been called Shakti. This flow has been called spirit. This is what you begin to experience if you hang out with the self instead of hanging out with the inner disturbances. You are not your thoughts. Always remember that. You don't have to get rid of loneliness. You just cease to be involved with it. Just like relationships that don't serve. You choose to let them go and free yourself and in the process. You don't have to get rid of loneliness. You just cease to be involved with it. It's just another thing in the universe, like cars, grass, and the stars. It's none of your business. Just let things go. That's what the self does. Awareness does not fight. Awareness releases. Awareness is simply aware, while everything in the universe parades before it. If you sit within the self, you will experience the strength of your inner being, even when your heart feels weak. This is the essence of the path. This is the essence of a spiritual life. Once you learn that it's okay to feel inner disturbance, and that inner disturbance can no longer disturb your seat of consciousness, you will be set free. You will be free. You will begin to be sustained by the inner energy flow that comes from behind. I like to think of be from within you, from below. When you have tasted the ecstasy of the inner flow, you can walk in this world and the world will never touch you. That's how you become a free being. You transcend. Any thoughts on that juicy read? Removing your inner thorns. So after I practiced my meditation this morning, just don't open the mail. These things come and go. I love that one. That's a great one. That's a really good one. Isn't that the irony? But then is that an avoidance tactic too? The problem is only a problem when we keep avoiding it. See how that works? The avoidance factor, the escapism, the I'll go over here so I don't see what's over there, the cognitive dissonance, if I don't give it my attention. But the irony is that's exactly what you need to do. You need to sit with it, face it full on, even in the face of fear, and acknowledge that even fear is afraid. Because when you confront it, it just becomes like a big old softie. You're like, oh my gosh, there you were, looking like a big bad monster. And the whole truth of the matter is you were just trying to protect me by creating a story that's not even true. So thank you. Thank you to fear, because it's a primal need to be able to protect from true harm, from any predators. But the reality has to be the perception, the discernment of a true threat. Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. It's a powerful, like, wow. Fear is simply your mind trying to protect you. And when you confront the story around why there's fear and acknowledge that the fear is just based on your past and it's comparing your experiences, that's all it can know is the past and the known, that it doesn't know the future, it doesn't know what's coming, it only knows what's been. And so it thinks it's predicting, but in reality it's just caught in the past. Life is really precious, very special. And the more we're willing to feel, the more empowered we will be, because it's the feeling that's revealing, and that's how the healing occurs. Yeah. So it really is this circular thoughts, right? You catch the thought, but you don't attach to it. You want to allow it to pass through, because the passing through of those thoughts is just revealing some of your old program, some of what's still unresolved. It's when we attach to it and create stories around it that we recognize, wow, I still got some work to do. And we all do. We're going to continue to have work to do. We're always going to have a layer to unpeel, to reveal. And let me tell you, an untethered soul. Think about that. We need to tether our mind to be more kind. Because the mind is out of the body. The mind is not the body. It's the body that reflects the mind. So every thought, every belief literally manifests you as a human. But it starts even beyond the body, because we have multiple bodies, ethereal. In different practices, you'll hear them called different things. You got a negative mind, a positive mind, a neutral mind. You got the soul body, the electromagnetic field. You've got the bliss body. I mean, there's just so many different names. Does it really matter? No, it really doesn't. What matters is that you have a relationship within your mind, and you literally try to be in your body, tether and ground yourself in this human existence. We're not here to escape our bodies. This body's a gift. It's a temple. And so when the mind is overactive, the body gets depleted. The mind literally steals energy from the body. Sit with that for a moment. The mind steals biological energy from the physical body, which means if your mind is fixated on something you don't want, gets caught up in the fear, the avoidance of the pain, the thorn that we're talking about in this particular reading, what ends up happening is the body feels exhausted. How many of you out there have had that overworking mind going out like a crazy person? And you're like, oh my God, by the end of the day, you're like, I don't know why, but I'm so exhausted. I didn't do anything really, strenuous. Can't understand why. And you're still overthinking that too, on top of the overthinking of whatever it was that exhausted you to begin with. That's what creates most people's exhaustion, is getting caught up in your own mind. And so when the body is going, okay, I need to go sleep early, I'm tired, this, that, and the other, it's because you've been all up in here. So it's a powerful thing to take a break, to take a walk, get in nature. Overthinking the overthinking. Exactly, Pamela. It's crazy thinking. It's crazy making. The body is always telling on the mind. Check in with your body. It will always tell you every time. It's clever. It's a fun game when you start to get more kind of tuned in, going, oh my goodness. And of course, the mind, it loves to be able to say, see, I told you so. I was right. It likes to be right. Doesn't necessarily like to be happy. It's not there to keep you happy. It's there to keep you safe. It's there to protect you. Protect you in what way? No, we're not here to play small. We're here to do things outside of our comfort zone for sure. And that in itself, it takes a lot of courage. And but you got to exercise the courage muscle, right? So you got to do things that feel uncomfortable to build the courage, the stamina, and the trust within that, wow, I was able to do this before, so I know I can do it again. And even when you meet those moments of trepidation and the mind's already trying to talk you out of doing it, always bring yourself back to the times when you were able to do something you were thinking prior that you couldn't do. How many times has that happened in your life? I'm one to... hey, listen, there are times when I go to do a video, I'm still sitting here to push the go live button. It's like, because I set an intention, I ground my body, I know it's going to work out. I'm here, aren't I? Anybody who does stuff like this will tell the average person who says, oh, it's easy for you, you make it look so easy. It still takes practice, and practice makes progress. It's not perfection. Because you're going to make all sorts of mistakes, and there's no such thing as a perfect anything, except for the perfect you as you are. So get out of your head, stop comparing yourself, because a lot of that whole in your head stuff is analysis paralysis. That was perfect timing. It's the comparing ourselves. Whenever we're making a judgment or making a choice, what happens is the mind immediately goes to compare you to another person, your past to the present, your choice to do something based on a choice you've made in the past and what the outcome was back then. We need to be more cognizant of the thoughts that keep us small. The more we know what the old programming is, the more we can repeatedly try things that challenge that thinking to prove it wrong. So if your mind is used to saying, well, I'm not strong enough, I can't do that, go prove yourself wrong. Like chase the pain. That's what they say in a lot of different circles as far as stoicism. Like you should be chasing that which challenges you the most, because that's where you'll grow the most. And if you have any questions about that, Just tap in, tune into yourself and ask yourself, you know, hey, when you ballet with your wife or husband, how does that work? What do you mean? My y'all. Anyway, life is fun when you want it to be, and it's also painful when you want to. Yeah, pattern breakers. That's what we're here for. You know, some of us, we see connections, we see patterns, we see how things are connected in our lives. Because again, when you tap into that inner knowing, then you start to see, oh, that's my pattern. Let me see, is that serving or is it time to shift that? And that's why we have tools like the fists of anger, where we're breaking up patterns. We're breaking up the whole mind. Because when you're doing stuff like that, like I said, the armpits are the garbage pit of the mind. We need to cleanse and clear out this junk. And so to clear out the mental mind is to floss it out with meditation, breath work. When you give your body and your mind all these different tasks to do, it's like, wait a minute, I can't stay steady on one thought, because it starts bouncing around like a little ping pong, right? Inside of you when you're doing that particular meditation, let's say. You're trying to, like, oh shoot, I'm spitting on myself, and oh my gosh, my arms are they're gonna fall off, and oh my God, and my back, and then you notice the junk that comes up. And then at the end, you sit there and go, it wasn't so bad. And that mind, boy, that's all that mind is doing is revealing all the junk that's up there. Because the more you're doing it, what you're doing is reinforcing the courage to do it. You're also building the strength to do it, the resilience to know that you're capable of doing it. Each time you're completing a day, when you're doing 21, 40 days, however you want to do the meditations, when you're consistent, you are retraining your brain. You are rewiring the neural pathways in your body, like brain games and exercise. If you don't use it, you lose it. And what do you think creates the chemistry setup that we have in our body? Like, we need to exercise the body because that re-engages the brain. You want a clear mind, right? There are so many people that don't want to exercise. I don't like to exercise. That sucks. And they are brain fog city. Hey, Alvar Billy. Like, if you don't move your body, then your mind gets stuck. And if your mind is stuck, your body gets more reinforced. So it's literally to break up the patterning, you got to move your body. And so that's why things like this and going out and doing other exercises too, because when you cross the midline, you're also crossing the hemispheres of the brain. So again, it's connecting the synapses and rewiring us all the time and reinforcing those patterns. So if you ever wondered, why do we do those kinds of things in Kundalini yoga, for example? Why do you do 21, 40 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1,000 days of different meditations? Because whatever it is you want to change in your life, there's a recipe for that. Literally, there's a recipe, even if you don't know what else to do. So I am back on a couple of mine that I've done in the past. My favorite one is Kirtan Kriya, because that's like, truth is my identity. It's a constant, it's a cycle of birth, death, rebirth, and infinity. It's the whole cycling through you and recognizing your vastness, recognizing your infinite being. And the other one is this Gyan Chakra Kriya, where you're basically celebrating the abundance of your life. Some people will say, well, it's a good way to attract abundance to you. And I'm over here going, actually, what it is real or imagined, you're celebrating it as it is. So maybe you have something you're very grateful in your life and you want more of that. You just celebrate and show appreciation. So that's what this particular Kriya is it's, wow, oh my gosh, celebrating. Oh, this is so beautiful. This is so wonderful. Like, I've done both of these. I've done Kirtan Kriya for over 1,000 days easily. And the Gyan Chakra Kriya, I can't even remember how many years I've done that one as well. So these are all just tools. And just, hey, I'm here for it. And I hope all of you are just basking in your awareness, because there's always more. There's always more. I think that's good for tonight. I thank you all for joining me. I'm sorry I couldn't read through all the chats so quickly, but I'll go back and look at them. You're so also amazing. Please, if you're doing the fists of anger, keep on doing it. Keep me posted. I love when people are writing in there, because as I'm seeing each person that's been doing it regularly, I'm seeing the feedback and what they're becoming aware of. And that's so beautiful. It's amazing what the insights reveal, the into me I see, because the more you spend time with you, the more you get to know you. And I know Pamela from, I think we met through Decode Your Reality, Logan's page, and I've done a reading with him. And it is so imperative that you know yourself so intimately, because the more you know you, nobody can get one over on you. The more you know, it empowers you too. So the more you know yourself so well, you're good, you're bad, you're ugly, you're beauty, all of that junk, like you just walk around and go, hey, I got my superpower shield on. Open that heart, like really expose who you are to you. And then you can be a walking, living testament, because that's what we're here to do. Have you heard the terms, make your mess a message, and make your test your testimony? There's purpose in your pain, and you're here to serve it up on a platter for those out there that seek you. We all have that. We all have that. So thank you again. I am always here to support, uplift, inspire, and empower through my inspired living, because that's what I do. All I know is to be true to me and who I am. So that's my gift, is I share where I'm at. And today, we're removing thorns. What thorns in your life have been holding you back, and how can you remove it as opposed to keep on protecting it? Yeah. Love you. Have an amazing evening.